You are our expert in this arena, particularly in the Texas case. What are you expecting on July 8th?
Well, we spoke about this previously, Lawrence, that they were going to come back. And despite the bravery and actions taken by the Texas state legislators who walked out and did whatever they could to prevent this from passing during the regular session, that they were going to come back and try to do this again. The good news, I think, is that some of the most egregious provisions may actually come out of the bill, from cutting the Sunday early voting restriction, where they were trying to clearly target souls to the polls, to making it easier to overturn an election. Those may come out. It seems like that's possible. But they're still going to empower partisan poll watchers, tie the hands of local elections officials, ban drive-through and 24-hour voting. This is all, of course, on top of us already being the hardest state in the country to vote.
All right, let's go back to the overturn the election part, because for me, and there's a lot of people covering this, there's a lot of different perspectives. I'm zeroing in on that. I am so concerned about what happens after votes are cast in Georgia, what might happen after votes are cast in Texas. So what was in the provision that they tried to get through? And are you anticipating that they might just get rid of it completely?
It's strange, Lawrence, because some of the legislators were saying that they were not aware of what was in the bill previously, which makes me wonder who was writing it, right? Because, if people on the conference committee hadn't seen some of this language, then you wonder what outside group is handing them this language and telling them to put it in legislation to affect the whole state of Texas. But previously, they were trying to lower basically the threshold for a court to overthrow an election, to basically say you don't have to prove actual fraud, that you can just have a presumption, basically. And then in that case, a judge, in this case in Texas, partisan elected judges, could decide to overthrow an election. And anytime we're talking about making it easier to overthrow elections, we are talking about really going to the heart of democracy. So you're absolutely right. This is one of the most concerning provisions. I'll be watching closely, certainly, to see if it stays in.
And is that the kind of provision that could be challenged constitutionally by election lawyers if it is in the bill?
Absolutely. There are several ways I think it could be challenged, either just on a straight constitutional grounds, or perhaps under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. You could probably see how you could make this challenge, but it certainly would be. And I think the moment that it was signed into law, you would see a lawsuit filed, probably by Mark Elias.
Yeah, Mark Elias is keeping a running tally for us on Twitter about every new lawsuit he files in every state as it's happening. But that's the most difficult possible way of pulling that tooth is after the fact through litigation like that. So July 8th is going to tell us an awful lot about the future of Texas.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've been a part of lawsuits where, even if there were later changes to the restrictions that were made in a bill, that we had elections that were conducted under those restrictions. And in many ways, those elections, were not fully, verified elections, because you had later courts say that discriminatory provisions were in place during the voting of that bill or of that period. So, it's really a long process, litigation is. It takes time. There are appeals. And of course, we have courts that may not be friendly to voting. And that's why we need to have federal voting protections, as we've talked about, to try and make sure that these things don't ever go into place.